Wednesday edition in the kitchen. MTG Gaming Bob's here. Woo! How you doing, Bob? Nice to see you this morning, friend. Robert O'Brien's here. Johan Matuzzi coming live all the way from Sweden. Titantaman. How is everybody doing today? Chat's working. Little pop-up chat. All right, all right. Hopefully everything is smooth today. It's Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. Get things running here this morning with you folks. Getting ready to do the show. The countdown is on. Wednesday, middle day of the hump day. Steak and pajamas day. What do we got for news articles for you folks today? I know we've got something good to talk about. Ah, yes. Do we ever? We do. We do have interesting news articles for you folks. Pretty excited about that. Coming to you live. Aha. Let's not get any chop here today. We can't handle no chop in the stream. Nobody wants any choppy stream. Get the bugs out, make sure everything's working just right. Morning, folks. How are y'all doing today? It's April 5th, 2023. Behind the stock desk, it's me, Brody Alfonso, with the morning show. Another amazing Magic the Gathering morning show. With you folks, the amazing fans of Magic the Gathering who love the game as much as we do, thanks again for tuning in. Let me ask you this question. If you're tuning in today, do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there? Or is there too much information? Let me do it for you. I'm doing it each and every morning, Monday through Friday, here on the morning show with you folks who love this game and love to participate in the chat. I really enjoy hanging out with you folks in the morning. There's some interesting news and developments in Magic the Gathering, and I'm excited to bring you a couple of news articles here this morning. But let's just make sure everything's working here. We're going to test the stream. We're going to get everything checked out, make sure everything's working just fine here this morning. And you know how we do that. Let's warm up with a couple of AI generated magic cards here this morning. If you have time to spend with us, I know that your time is valuable and you don't have time to waste. So let's get right to it. We're going to look at some AI generated magic cards. We'll test the stream, make sure everything's working good, make sure you can hear me, make sure the chat's going. And if there's any gibberish on the cards whatsoever, you'll hear this sound. The sound of the buzzer. Probably just one buzz. We're not going to go overboard. Pete, and if it's a decent card, we're going to hear this sound. We'll give it a pass. That means even if it's a playable card, even if it's a little bit overcosted, we're going to give it a pass. Of course, if there's any gibberish on the card, you can vote with your keyboard, your mouse, or your wallet. Either which way is fine by me. But let's take a look at some of these AI-generated magic cards here. And let's see what we've got here for your viewing pleasure here this morning. Interesting card here for 0 mana. This is a Sictol Jejuira for 0 mana. This Huquaf says light. You aring another Elementia. Sigurs get +1/+1. Artifact no, -2/-1. Tap. Mountain Pluncuff its kicker flash. Oh gosh, this is so full of gibberish, it's not even funny. Fail this sucker right now. Get it out of here. We don't have time for this. Don't you know that the viewer's time is valuable? How we got to give it a rating. OP, fair, unplayable, word salad. Let's go with some word salad here this morning, folks. Get the chat working. Love it. Robert O'Brien says good morning. All the cool kids in the house here this morning. Let's take a look at another one here. What do we got? The Fervent? The Fervent. The Fervent. Time capsule. Good morning, folks. Is this German? Tommy Siddons is here. Good morning, Tommy Siddons. How are you doing this morning, friend? Nice to see you again this morning, Tommy Siddons. Let's keep going. Gaming Bob says, if you go to scryfall.com and type T Night in the search bar, I'm growing fonder of Scryfall to have amazing help page for keyword searches. Scryfall. You know, I'm going to have to do that because I'm always looking for more decent cards for this Knight Tribal that we were working on last night. Been searching up some more Knights, found plenty of good ones. Scryfall is the place to do it. Robert O'Brien's barely alive this morning. Well, how about this? How do you feel about the Fervent this morning, Robert? Chapman card for 1 red and 2. It says you have no maximum hand size. Your hand can be any size you want it. Could be small, could be large, could have 52 fingers on one hand. And you could pay 3. The next time a spell you control would deal 4 damage to you this turn, prevent the damage. Pretty situational, if you ask me. The next time a source would deal 4 damage, it's You prevent it instead. I mean, it's situational, but it is technically a magic card. I don't know how we can't pass this. No max hand size in red for 3 mana seems fine. And the weird part of the source dealing 4, you can prevent it for 3 mana. Okay, super situational. Super situational with cheese. Can I get an extra situational magic card with a little bit of cheese? All right. Well, that's what we used to call red burn decks back in the day. Cheese decks. That's what they used to be called. Good morning, Magic Nerds. Richie Dub. Good morning. I'm here. I'm nerding out. I'm looking at some magic cards. Good morning, Brody. Working earlier today, so I'll be listening to you while I drive. Well, wherever you've got Brody hanging with you this morning, if you got me hanging from the rearview mirror of the car, you got me dragging from the bumper, you got me on the dash, maybe next to the coffee pot, wherever you are, take care this morning. I'm glad you got Brody along for the ride. How do we evaluate the fervent? OP, fair, unplayable, word salad. We're going to give it a fair. Let's see. Some people say it's unplayable. I don't know about that. I mean, no max handside in red. That seems like something decent. And this card here, coming back to where we started yesterday, Sace Touch of Spoiswring. Non-artifact creatures non-artifact creatures have indestructible. The straight up non-artifactos have indestructible. That's that seems fine. For 2 mana? This is an enchantment. Non-artifact creatures you have. What format you brewing knights for? Well, I was gonna go commander because we got this new card, right? The one that gives horsemanship. Horsemanship is back. That's horse spit. Some horse spit, right? I got some really good really good suggestions from you folks yesterday to build horsemanship tribal with a herald of hoofbeats. You can hear the beats of hoofing. Sace of the touch of spoy strength. Non-artifact creatures have indestructible. Seems a little hard to say, but the card is actually costed okay. 2 mana for this enchantment. Non-artifact creatures you have indestructible. Why not? Is there anything else? This art is just creepy. Like it's all digital art. Island? Ooh, now I like this island. Gaming Bob, what do you think? Is this a decent island? The fervent is playable, but why would you? When you cast a 4 damage spell at yourself, then pay 3 to prevent it, right? It's a little expensive. I mean, it's terrible that way. I know. I know. It's still like a magic card though. It's not word salad. OP or fair? I'd give this island a pass. Let's give it a ding. I like it. The ding, the wonderful thing. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Do you guys want me to do the Wednesday dance? Because it's Wednesday? Have you heard of this? The trend brewing on TikTok and all the other talks. And okay, let's check the Kesmail Shout. I thought it was going to be Kesmail Scout, but this is Kesmail Shout. The Shout. All right, we got a 4/6 creature. It doesn't have a creature type. That's kind of too bad. It should have a creature type. It should be like a shout. What should be like maybe I don't know, an elemental perhaps? A winged thing getting shot with laser beams. In Bant, a blue, a green, and 3 flying 4/6. When Kesmail Shout enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Kesmail Shout. X and tapping target creature becomes X +1/+2 counters on Kesmail Shout. No, this sucker is word salad. I mean, everything was good until I noticed it didn't have a creature type. And then it enters with a 1/1 counter, and the X and tap it, target creature becomes X. No, can't have any of this in the house. Let's get it out of here. How would you evaluate the Kesmo Show? Word salad. Little word salad. And then back to the place we started yesterday, Cypress Thorn. Fail Kesmo Shout. It's word salad. That guy got to fail so fast. Richie Dub says, Brody, if you do the Wednesday dance, it might get 1 million views, and 500K of them would be from me. I like it. I'm going to do the Wednesday dance. Here, it's Wednesday. Folks, thanks for joining. It's the Bro Show. I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to do this. It looks like things are working well. here on the morning show. This morning, we got some folks in the chat. Things are working good. No chop in the stream, if you know what I mean. Police at the door. Chop on the stream, if you know what I mean. If you got a problem, we'll solve it. We'll check out these articles while Brody revolves it. Here at the stock desk, I've got something interesting for you folks today. How y'all doing? All right, interesting article from the stock desk here this morning, and I think it's quite fair to say I was bombing around on the Twitter the other day. I was, and then there's a guy on the Twitter tweets and the tweet elites and the bots and the boo beeps, and he was talking about MagicCon Philadelphia, and I'm like reading this tweet. I'm gonna build myself a coffee. If you haven't, build one too. Drive safe on the highway wherever you're rolling. Watch out for traffic. So I'm bombing around on Twitter, and this is right before the pre-advent of MagicCon Philadelphia happens, and I see this guy, and he's tweeting, and he goes, "I'll be at MagicCon Philadelphia, and I'm playing Dan Dan. If anybody wants to join me," and I'm like, "Dan Dan, cool. He's playing a deck with Dan Dan in it," and I was like. So then I started looking into the comments, and people started commenting, and I'm like, "Well, I know what that card is. It's like the big 4/1 fish, right?" And then I looked into it a little farther, and I was like, hey, this is something to this. This is like another format. It's like a made up format. And it seems kind of funny. So I looked at the rules, and from what I could tell, the rules are such that two players sit down to play a Dan Dan deck, and we both share the same deck. And the win condition in the deck is Dan Dan. That's the only like win condition in the deck. And then there's a bunch of other spells in there, but you sit down and you play with your opponent off the same deck, and you try to cast Dan Dan and kill your opponent with Dan Dan. So then, just a day or two later, I'm reading along and bombing along on the stock desk and checking out articles for you folks. I remember hearing about the Dan Dan last July, right? That format, right? Tommy Siddons knows what I'm talking about. So I heard about it. I heard about it on the Twitter, and I heard about it on the Twitter bots, and I was like, hey, this is now all of a sudden people are writing about it, and I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. All right, why not? It is a format. So let's read on it for today, because this novelty format has caused a $1,500 price spike. And that format, in case you didn't know, is Dan Dan. So let's read this article for you folks today, but within the wide world of Magic the Gathering, there are a ton of formats for players to play. Well, the most popular of these at the moment is undoubtedly Commander, which exploded in popularity over the recent years. Now, dominating the financial markets, Commander is even leading the future of Magic the Gathering in the new Eternal World design philosophy. Despite the recent surge in popularity, Commander is hardly the only format Magic the Gathering players enjoy. Standard, Modern, and even Legacy aren't going away after all. Is your name Dan? We don't have any members of the channel named Dan, but if we did, this stream would be for you. Little sip of coffee, tasting good. So let's talk about Dan Dan, this format that's causing a single card in the game to spike by 1,500%. And besides, along these official formats, many Magic the Gathering players have concocted their own bizarre rules and formats to maximize their fun. See, these are smart people. Let's read that again, because I like this part. If you want to get the fun in your collection, we want to maximize the fun value. There are multiple Magic the Gathering players that have concocted their own bizarre rules and formats to maximize their fun. The Wacky Races format, which turns Magic the Gathering to a racing game. Never heard of it, but now I have to check it out. It's very recent, and dramatic example of this is considered that Magic has been around since almost 30 years, and unsurprisingly, not all players made formats that are new. Shout out to MTG Gaming Bob and Commander Raids. The utterly baffling Forgetful Fish format, for instance, has existed since at least 2016, although it's never been too popular. Thanks to a recent video, however, that may all be about to change. The Forgettable Fish, Dan Dan, and the story of it. So I'm going to post a link to this article if you guys want to go there and you want to check out the video for yourself. I suggest you do it. I haven't even looked at it yet. I just wanted to read this and share it with you folks here today. I did a little research on Dan Dan because I wanted to figure out exactly what it was. Time Capsule says, quit playing long ago, but quit collecting a few sets ago. I come here for the commentary and the fun, right? Time Capsule, loving the fun. So if you want to know what's new and you want to talk about what's going on and you want to talk about some fun formats, like let's check out this Dan format. Recently brought back into the limelight by MTG YouTuber Ristic Studies, Forgetful Fish is an absolute bizarre player-made format, originally the brainchild of MTG player Nick Floyd. The Forgetful Fish revolves around the deck of the same name, constructed not around just one, but 10 copies of the Arabian Nights card Dan. What? Yeah, there's 10 copies of this fish. It's safe to say that Forgetful Fish is a little bit strange, and the weirdness doesn't end there. However, as within Forgetful Fish, both players use the same 80 card deck. Okay, so a little more information. It's an 80 card deck. We both play off the same deck, and like anybody could build this deck because anywhere you play it, it's going to be the same. Alongside the mandatory 10 copies of Dan, the Forgetful Fish deck also includes 8 copies of Memory Lapse. Floyd explained in their design document that these 2 marquee cards give the deck its name, similarly to much of the rest of the official Forgetful Fish decks. These 2 cards aren't incredibly powerful or exciting. After all, Memory Lapse is a tepid counterspell, which has niche appeal, and Dan's unquestionably a weak card, boosting 4/1 stats and the requirements that you have your opponent has an island to play to attack with Dan is borderline unplayable. But within the Forgetful Fish format, however, this unassuming fish has been given a new lease on life. Beyond just having a funny name, the Forgetful Fish format offers an incredibly tactical and compelling gameplay experience, as though this unique control mirror match, players are constantly fighting over the top of the deck. While Dan may be the namesake card, it's undoubtedly the core of the Forgetful Fish experience, facilitated through cards such as Predict or Brainstorm. Forgetful Fish matches can be staunchy, competitive, and tactical. They should go on long enough. Forgetful Fish even results in games where you or your opponent get decked out in a spectacular fashion. So surging in popularity here. Let's look at the card here. Here's the card. This is like, if you look in the background, and we're not talking about the boats as much as we would. There's these 2 boats here. Brody's looking at the couple of bateaux here. That's the French content for the day here. C'est bon, de bateau. La carte de bateau, right? That's our French content moving up the YouTube algorithm due to inclusivity of Canadian content. Got these 2 boats, but Dan's actually this fish that's below the surface coming up in between the boats. So don't be fooled by this. Anger Collection's in the house. How you doing, buddy? Dan cannot attack unless opponent controls any islands in play. Dan is destroyed immediately if at any time you have no islands. So this is a 4/1. And we got the Memory Lapse card. There's like 10 copies of this. Counter target spell. That spell is countered this way. Put it on top of its owner's library instead of into the graveyard. So you're memory lapsing your opponent's Dan constantly. Put it on. You're fighting over the top of the deck. While the Forgetful Fish. Okay, so yeah, I guess the namesake of the deck was Forgetful Fish before it was Dan, because you got the Memory Lapse and Dan together. So you cast the Dan, you fight over the resolution of the spell, and then you put it on back top of the library that you both share. The matches can be fierce as players vie for control of the top of the deck. It's surprisingly easy to play, requiring just one deck and a pair of dice to track health, a comprehensive rules guide. This Forgetful Fish is remarkably accessible, and thanks to this Forgetful Fish deck, it can easily be brought out during an FNM to kill time or just fun. Ultimately, thanks to this accessibility and eccentricity, Forgetful Fish has been beloved by niche players since its creation. Following the recent video from Ristic Studies, however, this niche has exploded in popularity. I think it's going to explode in popularity now that Brody's mentioning it. That's what I'm about to say. So having painted the format as an incredibly enjoyable experience, players were eager to try it out. Who just that, many Magic the players have taken to the card sellers such as TCG Player and to snap up their copies of the namesake card. Unfortunately, for excited players, this was much easier said than done, as the supply of Dan is rather meager. It's an Arabian Nights card. It's partly in thanks to the card's most recent reprint being Time Spiral back from 2006. As barely playable draft chaff, it's understandable that a few copies of this niche card have been preserved throughout the years. Subsequently, that's all the rage. Actually getting a hold of Dan Dan has become quite the feat. Initially, before Ristic Studies released their video, copies of Dan Dan could be easily purchased for 40 cents, if not less. However, the prices of these cards have skyrocketed over the 15 times their original value and are now sitting at $6. The majority of Dandan's printings were completely sold out, leaving only original Arabian Nights copies, and due to their age, these prized Dandan copies are even more, sitting at $13. Limitless potential. So sadly for the forgetful fish, players looking to turn their decks into profit, Dandan is the only card that's spiking hard, being substantially more modern and frequently reprinted than other forgetful fish cards. Simply too common becomes expensive outliers. Curiously, when devising a new format in 2016, it seems Nick Floyd knew this would happen. As to mitigate the need to rush out and buy Dandans, Floyd included a sextuplet of proxy Dandan tokens within their design documents. Should the supply of Dandans not return to normal anytime soon, thankfully, Magic players interested in the format aren't completely out of luck. As throughout their video, Brody Alfonso is highlighting how one of the format's great strength is its numerous variants. While many of these alternate deck lists utilize the same core structure as the plethora of Dandans, a plethora. This is 2 days of plethoras. We have a plethora of news here for you folks. There are some outliers. Reddit users, for instance, pioneered a mono black variant of the format that's built around Icarid, and similarly, LGS owner Ryan Oberturf has proposed a Boros Burn version of the shared deck concept. Ultimately, whatever your preference is, it seems the Forgetful Fish format is an incredibly novel and compelling experience, and one that's certainly worth giving a try. So if you haven't tried it, I too I too went to the card stores to see if I could find copies of Dan Dan, and it was like 16 bucks and sold out of stores for the Arabian Nights card, right? Self-contained, so it will only go so high. Magic is now Commander the Gathering, right? How you doing this morning? Anger Collections in the house. Richie Dubs. We got Alan Cohoon. Alan says, I think Commander has become the de facto format that people play. Modern, vintage, standard, pioneer, 93, 94 formats like Forgetful Fish keep cropping up. They do. And I think that this is an homage to players that are willing to think outside the box and be rebellious against what Wizards of the Coast is printing and start coming up with new formats that are somewhat eternal. Time Capsule says, and there's a new co-op format, Oathbreaker being a new one. Yes. Bob and others have also been working on it. Yes, but see, Gaming Bob's a rebel with a cause because he's been pioneering in his play group Commander Raids, which is another group play format that is sort of outside the realm of what Wizards is printing cards for. So when people start to look for new fun and interesting ways to play Magic the Gathering, we love it. Hey, good morning. We're here now. Awesome. Dual Brains here in the house. Nice to see you. Premiere just finished. Everybody's jumping over here. Awesome. I'm glad to see you. Thanks for joining. We're talking Dan Dan this morning, and the card that is making waves and giving a 1,500% price spike is this card, Dan Dan, because there's a namesake deck for it that was released, and players were playing it at MagicCon Philly. Have you heard of Dan Dan? It's an interesting new. Well, I guess it's not new, but it's getting a resurgence, and it's causing the cost of the Arabian Nights original fish card to get bought out in price. Thanks for sharing the love there, Mr. Ed Dual Brain. I appreciate you for joining here. We're talking Dan Dan. Kylan Perdon is in the house. Cosmic Seed is over. We are hanging out with the folks here on the channel, reading some interesting articles for you folks today. I got one more article for you guys to read before we get into some. One more article for you to read before we get into some Movers and shakers here. We got weekly winners from last week. Now, Monday was a little bit of a hiccup because we had poor internet and yada yada. But let's go, Jerry. Jerry, let's go. All right, we're talking weekly winners from last week, and we want lots to talk about. Okay, so let's go. First card last week was Soul Spike. This card was coming in last week with a 439% gain in price. If you look at the chart on this sucker, this thing is spiking. It's aptly named Soul Spike, going up 439% all the way from 71 cents right here up to a whopping $6. And Brody just wants to draw lines on charts, right? $6 with a 430% increase. It's not the first time this instant from Cold Snap is spiking. I wonder what the foil version is worth. The last time we talked about it was in a weekly winners from 2015. And back then, it went up because there was an interaction between Grizzlebrand and Necrotic Ooze. The Grizzy Bee being the big 7/7 boy that is the prized reanimator target. Grizzy Bee and Necrotic Ooze. What's the Ooze do? We know what Grizzlebrand do, but Necrotic Ooze, 4/3 ooze that says as it enters the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all creatures on in all graveyards. Oh, so the ooze becomes Grizzlebrand if Grizzlebrand's in the bin? Oh, some interesting tech. All right. Well, what does this Soul Spike do? It's 7 mana. You may remove 2 black cards in your hand from the game rather than pay its mana cost. Soul Spike deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 4 life. So any of these alternate casting cost cards, I'd like to see what the foil multiplier is on this. Let's take a look here this morning. Soul Spike. Cold Snap foil, original. That one's $39 for the foil in Cold Snap. Doesn't seem too bad. It went from 10 to 40. All right. So that was our winningest card yet last week. 439% going up. Chancellor decks playing it, Chancellor of Dross, and a few other ones. It's going to be fire. Soul Spike can end the game fast, right? While the card is not on the reserve list, it's never been printed since Cold Snap. So barring a reprint, this card may have some room to grow, but we're also seeing another card from this deck move up. Sleeper Agent. Let's take a look at the Sleeper Agent. Wake up, Sleeper Agent. 1 black for this minion creature is a 3/3, and when a Sleeper Agent comes into play, target opponent gains control of it. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 2 damage to you. Do you give your opponent a 3/3? Sort of like a downside, I guess. Yeah, this card has been received 2 reprints since its original print in Urza Saga, including a spot in the list. And it's interesting creature for 1 black that you have to gift to an opponent, but will deal 2 damage to its controller during each of their upkeep. It went up 90% to $3.59. So here's another card spiking. As of last week, this is your winningest cards in the market of Magic the Gathering. A little recap for you folks. Last week, this card is up a bunch. And this one here brought back. This is our 3rd winner from last week. And this sucker is up 44%. It's 2 white for this instant from M20. It says choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. Brought back. So you can just, what is going on? The past week, this brought back has seen significant increase in value, jumping up 45% to the price of $3.41. The surge in popularity can be attributed to its modern elementals deck, where it's become a key component in some builds where it's being experimented in. By using brought back to return 2 fetch lines to the battlefield as early as turn 2, the deck can generate enough mana to cast huge creatures like Elish Nornmother machines while maintaining control of the board. So people are using this for ramp. Yeah, it says 2 target permanent cards. So you play a fetch, you leave it. You play another fetch, you leave it. And then you double fetch and double white, and then refetch, fetch, and fetch again. Brought back can not only be used as ramp in white, but it can counter removal. At the end of your opponent's turn, when you use your creatures as chump blockers, when your opponent has played removal, you can cast brought back to, well, bring those creatures back. It brought back is also a strong interaction with creatures that have the evoke ability. I need some more interaction in my deck. I think this would be a card for that. And cards such as Muldrifter and Solitude, I like the tech on this. Muldrifter is the one that enters and draws 2 cards. You can evoke it. So any creature you can evoke, it gets sacrificed, and then the brought back brings it back for another trigger on cards like Muldrifter or anything with evoke on it, like Shriekmaw, Fury. That seems like a pretty good tech. Brought back? What a card. Yeah, Fury, double strike, enters the battlefield as you, it deals 4 any way you choose. And you evoke this suck. So any of evoking creatures that a player can effectively play, you have to sacrifice to get the beneficial effects, such as drawing cards or removing a creature from the battlefield. But then using brought back, the player can just return the creature to the battlefield, effectively bypassing the downside of the evoke and gaining an additional value. It's instant speed, so you can do it on your opponent's end step or whenever you darn well please. This card seems like some really good tech in white where there's not a lot of RAM. And to those of you folks watching on Rumble, young man, Rumble, the Jungle Rumbler has hit the scene. Thanks for joining me and the folks here today. Meanwhile, Emeria the Sky Rune is a powerful land that allows players to return creatures from their graveyard to the battlefield by using brought back as ramp for your fetch lands. It's relatively easy to get 7 planes, and seeing as every single non-fetch and non-Emeria land is a plains. Let's read this one. Emeria the Sky Rune, Commander 14, Emeria the Sky Rune enters tapped. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then the brought back can ramp you into your planes by returning fetch lands to the battlefield. This seems darn good. Soul Spike. Rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling through the morning show. Brody's here. How you doing, Jungle Rumbler? I'm glad you can make it. It's a good one. So also important to mention that the aspiring Brody Alfonso is recently featuring this, and it's played with brought back last week. Okay. Another card's on the list, Reckless Impulse. This card's a price spike of $244 here this morning. It's going up in price. I'm just going to trim this screen down just a little bit. We're getting a little large, a little larger than life here this morning. I can't make lines on charts. Brody must make lines on charts. On March 6th, the banned and restricted announcement was released by Wizards to ban 2 cards in Legacy. One was Expressive Iteration. I think this was a lazy ban. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Some people think it's well worth it. What do you do? And to reduce the power level of well-known, is it Delver decks? Yes, because, oh, we're so fearful of Delver. It isn't the first week that we've discussed a card going up because of these bans. While these bans did seem to open up the metagame and a bit of legacy, you can imagine that Delver decks definitely didn't go away. There's still very strong decks and represented in the current meta, but the fact is that slot opened up in the decks to be filled. It looks like Reckless Impulse is the card of choice for some players. While it offers less selection than Expressive Iteration, it is still 2 mana sorcery that draws you 2 cards. I'm going to point something out here. Like, let's just look at this article. This has got me miffed. There's 3 sentences in one paragraph, all starting with and. And here, like, I'm sorry, but the use of conjunctions at the beginning of sentences 3 times in a paragraph is absolutely unfounded. You're starting with and. So, like, please don't do this. It makes for real tough reading, and it makes no sense to start 3 sentences in a row with conjunctions and an entirely new paragraph. There's my rant. Most writers don't do this, but this is really, like, I don't know. I looked it up the other day, and you're literally, you're. It's. I guess it's not a faux pas to start a sentence with "and," but you got to know what you're doing. And I'm sure you don't do it 3 times in a paragraph, and you start every sentence with "and," because it's just terrible to read. I can't even read the rest of this article. Important to note, if you want to play the mono red Kuldotha deck in Pauper, you definitely need to 4 Reckless Impulse. And while the Innistrad double feature version of Reckless Impulse seems to especially go everywhere price wise, these definitely is an upward trend as well for the regular version of the foils. Let's get into some cheap pickups. Jeepers. Does that bother anybody else, or is it just me? When like every sentence is starting with "and" in a paragraph. Every sentence. Really? Okay. Couldn't figure out some other words. All right. You should call your boss out on stuff like that. Let's go. $4.50 and moving up is currency converter. 1 mana for this artifact that says whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. Pay 2, tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. Tap it, put a card exiled with currency converter into your graveyard. If it's a land card, create a treasure token. If it's a non-land card, create a 2/2 black rogue creature token. Currency converter. I guess you could use this to deck yourself out and then return your win condition to the graveyard. I don't know. It's been identified here as a premium penny stock. Is anybody using currency converter? Let's read it one more time because it's coming in at $4.55. This is a penny stock pick of the week over here at the stock desk. Tell me if you see it. 1 mana. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. So on any discard, you get the option of exiling it. Pay 2, tap it, draw a card, then discard. So you could pay 2 and loot. It's a desolate lighthouse. All right. And then tap, put a card exiled with currency converter into your graveyard. If it's a land card, create a treasure token. If it's a non-land card, create a 2/2 black rogue creature token. So the way I would say, I guess you could use this is like to save cards in your graveyard, right? If you don't want your bin to be exiled, you can use this to exile it first, and then hopefully you can start recurring those binned lands or binned permanents back to your graveyard before your opponent removes your entire graveyard from the game. If you're playing in Commander, perhaps with a deck that's got a lot of grave hate, then the currency converter might be a way to get around it, except for the fact if you remove the currency converter, you're hooped. And speaking of currency, Dogecoin. Dogecoin spiking again. It's a little excessive and can be. I want to see what Alan says here. Alan says it's a little excessive and can't be used every sentence, right? Like, there's a way to do it. I looked it up because I'm like, geez, like, is it right? Because in school, like, we were taught, like, you don't start a sentence with a conjunction, but or and then, like, I guess there's no hard and fast rule on that, but it seems like really weird when you start every sentence in a paragraph with "and." It seems excessive. It can't be used in every sentence. Like, really? All right. You know why I'm beating this article up? Because this is the boss over the stock desk. It is. This guy. This is written by the boss, the guy in charge over at the stock desk. So, like, I'm gonna rip on him real good this morning because that's what bosses deserve. Complaints department. Brody's got a complaint. Stop starting your entire article in every sentence with "and." All right. The Golden Throne, $5.24 moving down. 4 mana for the Golden Throne. Now, this, I mean, does anybody got to go to the bathroom? I don't know. Poop jokes here this morning. The Golden Throne slowly moving down on the Golden Throne. Have you had a bit of a hard weekend? Are you stuck on the Golden Throne for 4 mana? This legendary artifact has arcane life support. Oh my. Always hold your friend's hair up when they're hunched over the Golden Throne. If you would lose a game, instead exile the Golden Throne and your life total becomes 1. Huh? And then it's got 1,000 souls die every day. Tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana in any combination of colors. Sack a creature, add 3 mana in any combination of colors. This is a decent card. Like, it's like, you can only tap it and use it once, but in a tokens deck, when something that's making like a lot of little maggot tokens or thrall tokens or little 0/1s, any of the tokens, you can do this. Words is hard. Okay. Words is hard. Yes. Maybe I shouldn't be so critical. It's just hard to read it, right? All right, this seems like a decent card, the Golden Throne, going down. And Maze of Ith, I don't know about you, but the original one from the Dark really tickles my fancy. This one is the land card. You tap it, and like the old wording on this card used to be so good, but now it's been errated and it's got new wording. It says tap it to untap target attacking creature, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. So let's look at the old Maze of Ith, because that was like the original one from the Dark. And Johan Matuzzi, this is a card for you, my friend, because you are collecting the Dark. This one says, this is the original one. It used to say, target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as a result of combat. So now it's been errated to say, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and by that creature each turn. And why does that even matter? Because it's now a damage prevention effect, which I don't agree with. I think they wrecked the Maze of Ith by changing it to a damage prevention land. Like that was never the intent of a maze. It's like it's removed from combat. It doesn't deal damage or receive damage. Okay, it just like negates combat. It basically removes it from combat. I think the idea of the Maze of Ith was that the creature goes in, gets stuck in the Maze of Ith, gets, the creature gets stuck in the Maze of Ith and can't get through it to get to combat the other side. So it's like, just remove target creature from combat this turn. It doesn't deal any damage. But now they got it, okay, it attacks, and it's still an attacking creature. It still attacks, but it becomes untapped and it gets prevented damage. I think they wrecked this card with the word change. I really did. What do you think? The original one made so much more sense and more flavor. See, untap target attacking creature, prevent all combat damage. Target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as combat. So it's like there is no damage. It doesn't deal any. It doesn't get any. There is no damage. Forget about it. But yeah, the errata on this card now, it makes it situationally bad, because there's cards that say damage can't be prevented this turn, and then Maze of Ith doesn't work. And you're like, well, he shouldn't even be attacking. Golden Throne's flavor text. 3 words that will send a chill down any man's spine. Let's read the flavor text on it. There is no flavor text. Cold toilet seat. That's the flavor text. All right. That's it for this week. And Arjun has been playing Magic since Ice Age, and has mostly played the Legacy format, and 10 years ago, and he founded MTG Stocks, and because he is friends and wanted to buy Magic and singles and the right time and to play with Thank you for another amazing article and Arjun. Excuse me. I see it everywhere, and I'm just like, I've had enough. I won't even say the ands. I'm just taking them out. Make sure you leave a like. Maze of Ith is a pretty good combo with Varagoth. Let's look at Varagoth here. Varagoth. Right? How do we spend Varagoth? Double R's. R's in Varagoth, right? I love giving the guys credit who work hard and are just like working stiffs. And like, you never know what people going through at work. And, right? And Jungle Rumbler. I heard you rumbling. And then? No, and then. Yes, there will be no and then. Varigoth says, Varigoth Bloodskyve Sire, the Demon Rogu, Death Touch 2/3, Boast. For a black and 1, target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. This is, you can activate this as ability only if this creature attacked this turn and only once each turn. Oh, okay. Pretty good in combo with Varigoth. I agree with this statement, MTG Gaming Bob, but I don't like the fact that if your opponent is kind of holding on to something or has got something on the battlefield that says damage can't be prevented, then the Maze of Ith just still, like, you can still kill the creature instead of just like, oh, I'll just remove it from combat. Like, I think I see what you're saying, and I like the tech. It's a great combo with Varigoth, but I don't like it being susceptible to damage prevention spells that can still hit my little attacking guy, even if he's gone into the maze. I would far rather them say target creature is removed from combat entirely, neither deals or receives damage this turn. That would have been so much better. But unfortunately, it's still good. It's a demon with Varigoth too. That's still good tech. It's just, keep in mind, if you're playing Maze of Ith, there are ways that people can get sneaky and try to prevent damage, right? We don't like the people being sneaky. What are we? Legacy. We got Modern Monday, Pioneer Tuesday, Pauper. It's time to go Pauper. Papa Top for Papa Pauper. Papa Top for Pauper Brody here this morning. The movers and the shakers. We're looking. Let's see. The new wording helps them keep some stuff in check. I got a good comment from Bob here. Right now, the new wording helps Varigoth since it is not removed from combat. Varigoth? Yes. He's got the bad touch, too. He's not removed from combat. And then, right? Love it. And then, right? And then. And then he's removed from combat. And then... All right, let's go. Pauper. Let's look at some Pauper cards. Galvanic Blast hanging out at the top of the list here. The movers and the shakers here this morning. We got this card. It's played in some decks that are artifact synergistic. Let's read the card. It's a great one. We got all the folks who want to say thanks to each and every one of you who are joining us this morning for some movers and some shakers. Thanks for joining me. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. No matter where you are, be kind out there. Share this stream with somebody else. Help somebody with one of their problems. And try to have a good and amazing day. Spread a little peace, love, and happiness in the world of Magic the Gathering. And then check out the stream. Galvi Blast. Let's check it out. I just think, like, how about this? Galvanic Blast is 2 damage to any target. It's a common. It's got Metalcraft, and this is played in Affinity, right? The Affinity deck. Scars a Mirrodin block, good value. Maze of Ith wording change is a trade-off for sure, right? You know why I'm salty about Maze of Ith, Bob? Is because I got a gotcha by that. I got gotchas. I'm like, no, it's, you can't, it doesn't matter if you prevent that, if the damage can't be prevented. It's like, it's removed from combat. And then somebody's like, no, new wording on the card, Brody. You don't, your version of Maze of Ith from the dark, it doesn't work how you think it works. And then I was like, darn it. So like anything in life, right? Sometimes you gotta make some mistakes. Sometimes you got to make some mistakes to get a little smarter, and that's the way it goes, right? Play testing and figuring out new card interactions and like playing new formats like Commander Raids, where you start looking at cards in a way that you never did before, and you start appreciating cards for reasons left unsaid. Like Galvanic Blast. This is a neat card. Speaking of okay, so say you wanted to Galvanic Blast yourself for 4 damage, right? 2 damage to any target, or 4 damage to any 4 damage instead if you control 3 or more artifacts. So this is the 4 damage that we're talking about this morning, Bob, when we were looking at the AI generated magic cards, and the one that prevents 4 damage from a spell that you cast to yourself. So this is what this goes with. If you happen to Galvanic Blast yourself, that can prevent it. But here's a card that's played in Burn, in Pauper. It's a great card. It's like Shock, but better, right? Once you get Metalcraft onto the battlefield, and I'll show you what I mean, you get 4 or more artifacts. 3 or more artifacts, it deals 4 damage. Chainer's Edict. So what artifacts are we running with this? Just straight up mana rocks. Okay, Blood Fountain. Ooh, this is a card, common card from Crimson Vow. When it enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Okay, I was sort of underwhelmed with how good the blood tokens were in Crimson Vow. I was like, well, it's not a food token. It's not a clue. It's not a gold or a treasure. It's a blood token. I wonder if it's going to be any good. And then there was a few people that started using decks like this, because like this is 2 artifacts for 1. So it's ramp, right? In affinity. So you play 1, you cast the blood fountain, you get a blood token with it. And now you can tap that to convoke, or you can tap it for or it counts for affinity on your artifacts. Pay a black and 3, sack Blood Fountain, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. The Chromatic Star for mana fixing, that's another 1 mana artifact. Nihil Spellbomb, printed at common. This is the one that nips somebody's graveyard. And if you play a black into it, when you do so, you can draw a card. So Nihil Spellbomb, some good colorless artifact graveyard hate. And Ichor Wellspring, the 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield or put into graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So in Pauper, the Galvanic Blast is galvanizing its way. Let's see how much like a foil version of it is. From Scars of Mirrodin, right? Who was saying that in the comments here this morning? Benson? Scars of Mirrodin? Where are we here? Golden Throne. I love it. The Golden Throne card. That's actually, I should write that down. That Golden Throne. I'm writing it down. I'm putting it on the list. You know, Brody does. I do keep a list every time we do this show, because there's cards that come up that I never even knew about, and you guys throw tech my way. I was talking to Mrs. Alfonso yesterday after we did the Herald of Hoofbeat stream, and like I think I'm leveling up my Magic game thanks to you folks, because like all these card interactions, cards I never even heard of, that you guys just like throw down in the comment section, and just like blows my mind. In fact, I love it. Let's take a look here. Written by the boss. Take it back to your desk and put my name on it, right? Maybe that could be. Just got to work. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining, Michael Superbacker. Love you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good, safe day out there. And you know, the people that you work with are lucky to have you around in the world, place around your vicinity. So you know, shout outs to them, and keep on shining, Michael Superbacker. The sun be at your face and the wind at your back. Keep doing what you do out there, spreading that happiness throughout the world to the people that you interact with. It goes a long way. It means the world to me to have you here on the show in the morning time. Thank you very much, Michael Superbacker, always having my back. What do we got here? See, and that's like a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The other day, it's like, I got problems, right? We all do. We all get tangled up in some problems. Like this card, Tangle, right? 1 green and 1 for an instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. It's like a fog. Each attacking creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap phase. This is a really good card. It must have been printed at common at some point in time. Invasion? World Championship? Where's the... How is this in Pauper if it's uncommon? Tangle. Where's the World Championship deck? Uncommon. Where's the Vintage Masters? Common. Printed in Common and Vintage Masters? That's online only. So does that work? Should a card been printed online only at Common change the entire paper format? Does that make sense? Because the Invasion foil is an uncommon, and that's the only printing of it. The only other place that is printed is Vintage Masters on MTG Online, and it was printed at common. Is that right? Can a card that's only been released in digital at common change the entire landscape of the paper format? I guess it can, but this is a fog that's really good. So this one, I mean, we're just going to go with it. Deck's playing it. Turbo Fog. Of course, the Turbo Fog would be playing it in Pauper. Tangle. So if you didn't know that, like, I'm smarter here already. This card was printed as an uncommon. It's funny, like, if it in Pauper, the rules say if it was printed at a common at any type, then you can use it, even though if it was downshifted. So I wonder if that's interesting. Buy commons uncommon from Scars of Mirrodin block. Good value. How about the foils? Any specifics, Benson? Benson is actually, I got to catch Benson yesterday on his stream. Anybody who's been over to Benson and Friends, would definitely be checking in over there because the YouTube progression over there is awesome. I love seeing the people do new things and provide new content. So it's great. I'll be checking out when I get the notification over there. Turbo's Fog by STI. I like this deck. Dispel, Fog, Preordain, Stream of Thoughts. Look at the art on this card. This is a great card. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into the graveyard. You shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. So target player mills 4, and then you shuffle 4 back in. We've got this guy that looks like he's got a candle wax and a eyeball poked out on the other hand. Accumulated knowledge. Here's a card. Draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named accumulated knowledge in all graveyards. I always wondered if there was a way to bust this card. Like, I mean, you can only get it up to 4, but if there's a way to, like, I don't know. Seems really good. Arcane Denial, it's not good in Commander, though. Like, the downside to this is that you can't play this card in Commander because the chances of anyone else playing it, slim to none. Arcane Denial. You know, Arcane Denial, this is such a great card from Alliances. This is the set in which the draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep started, right? Anybody remembers Alliances? This is the one card that people didn't want to play because it says counter target spell that spell's caster may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. Draw a card at the beginning of their next turn's upkeep. So the caster of Arcane Denial gets to draw a card on the next turn's upkeep. The person whose spell was countered gets to draw 2. And in decks where, like, Narset is a thing in a Planeswalker that prevents players from drawing more than 1 card each turn, this becomes like a really good counterspell for a single blue and 1. Boral, Chief of Compliance, can also reduce this casting cost of Arcane Denial by dropping off the 1 colorless, so it only costs a single blue. It's really good in this day and age. A card that was an interrupt back in the day that nobody wanted to play because it's just, you counterspell was so much better. And Force of Will was in the same set. Why would you play Arcane Denial? Lots of reasons to do it now. Frantic Inventory. Draw cards equal to the number of cards named Frantic Inventory in your graveyard. That's just like accumulated knowledge, isn't it? On Growth Spiral, a card that is like half of Uro. Printed at common. A really good card. Moment's Peace. Turbo Fog. Tangle. This is a great card. Prevent all non-combat damage. Oh, prevent all combat damage this turn, and then everything doesn't untap. So you can crack back fearlessly if people are trying to attack you. You could tangle them up in this green card from Invasion. And there's a few cards from Invasion that are on the reserve list. Here's a card. I got my very first Rhystic study from the Dual Brain channel. Shout out to Ed at the Dual Brain channel. I never had a Rhystic study until I did some box breaks over there. I got myself a Rhystic study. This has also been touted as one of the most annoying cards in Magic the Gathering. Everybody knows it. It's printed at common. How many like a common that's worth so much? What's the foil? $350 for this common, right? Look through the junk and see. Like, you never know when people are like, oh, it's just a box of commons. Heuristic Study is a card that's in there. Mystic Remora is a card that's common. It's playable and it's in there. Even the list reprint is fetching 40 something dollars and a jump start as well. Card's super playable in Commander. I don't see it listed here in Copper, but it's definitely a card to keep on the radar. I have one that I got from a box break over at Dual Brain. It's in minty mint condition, and I don't even want to play it. I'm gonna have to find myself a beat up copy because the one I got is so nice. Heuristic Study, would you like to pay the one? Anybody like to pay the one for watching? Anybody watching the stream this morning, would you like to pay the one? Just asking. If you don't, I'm going to go ahead and draw up the next card. Nobody's paying the one? All right, let's look at the next card. It's this card. Prismatic Strands from Commander 2019. This card's moving up on the movers and the shakers. This instant speed card. We were talking about this just the other day. And we're talking about fog decks, right? We got Holy Day, we got Prismatic Sands, and then there's Strands, and then there's the other one that's got the same mana cost. It says like prevent all combat damage this turn. You gain life for each creature your opponent controls. I gotta look that up. Because it's bugging me. It's got the same mana cost as this. So you can flash this back by tapping an untapped white creature you control. So like if you want to do a flashback deck where you're binning cards and getting benefits for it, then you just tap a white creature, you can cast this Prismatic Sands. This thing's been moving up in price pretty steadily as commander card. Really good. Foil version of it, 16 bucks. From Judgment. Okay, the original foil from Judgment. Reprinted in 2019. Let's look at the Judgment art. I almost like the art on this better from Eric Peterson. Look at the Prismatic Strands art here. You got all these colors of mana. Wow. Familiars, Tawgates, Familiars, and Ephemerate, Boros Bully. I want to look at the Familiars deck. I'm not familiar with the Familiars deck. Let's see, what do we got in the Familiars deck? La Familia. We got the God Pharaoh Faithful. 1 mana wizard. When you cast a blue, black, or red spell, you gain a life. Okay. Sunscape Familiar. Green spells and blue spells you control cost 1 less. Sage Row Denizen. Whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control target, player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into the graveyard. Seagate Oracle. When Seagate Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, the other on the bottom in any order. And Muldrifter, this card that evokes. It's a really good card. This was first place. This took first place in a Pauper Challenge, and just on the first of this month. Familiars. This is the first place deck right here. So on April Fool's Day, this took first place, went 5-0 in Pauper Challenge on MTG Online. So this is a pretty solid deck list, and it's including a copy of the Prismatic Strands. Preventing all combat damage. A couple of cool arts for this cool deck. Ephemerate, again, a card that's included in the Strands deck. Familiars deck. Ephemerate's a card that I'm scared of. This card just bugs me because it's really hard to deal with, because people playing Ephemerate, if you try and remove their creatures, they're using this to blink it, and then you can't target it. And they play that with cards like Soul Herder, Coiling Oracle, and a bunch of other cards. Let's read this one here. This comment says 1 white, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and then you can rebound this. If you cast it from your hand, you exile it as resolved in the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to do it again. So there's huge value. This might as well be 2 cards with Ephemerate. It's really good. I want to see, is there any other art for it? Yes, Strixhaven, Mystical Archive. You got this other version from Mystical Archive as a promo. What do you think? Do you like the lion that's being kind of chopped in half? Kind of there and not there, the digital lion? Hard to say. It's a little too new age art. But the Karkan Shaman is a common card from from Mirrodin. Here's another card. Like if Benson was talking about cards from Mirrodin, this card we saw last week on the Movers and the Shakers, and it's moving up in time still. I miss Benson and Friends. Aw, sad G. Anyone seen Richie Dubs? Has anybody go see Richie? Richie with the bullet eyes. Moment's Peace is an amazing fog card. Let's check it out. During the 2020 presidential debate, someone made a meme saying, "Are you going to pay the one?" I love it. What's this card here? Moment's Peace? An amazing fog card? Karchan Shaman, let's say, sack an artifact. He deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. All right. Affinity. So you can just finish him off, right? With the Karchan Shaman. So you drop all your stuff on the battlefield and you just finish the creatures off and then recycle them. Interesting. Let's check out this card from Moment's Peace. From Odyssey. Ooh. Yes, this is a great card. This is the tree. Rebecca Guay. Prevent all combat damage this turn. Flash it back. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna definitely be catching the replay of this stream. I got a few more awesome cards that I want to pick up for the deck, including the Rolling Earthquake, Golden Throne, just because it's funny, and like there's some good tech here today. Shield Sphere. Here's a card from Alliances. Oh, Predatory Hunger. Whenever an opponent successfully casts a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on enchanted creature. Huh. From Exodus. Is it reserve list? No. Is there a foil version? No. Because it's Exodus. All right. Shield Sphere. This was big with Arcady Sabbath was printed, right? We got spoilers of Arcady Sabbath in this 0/6/0 mana wall. That gets a 0 -1 -0 -1 counter on it. And the uncommon slot became a little more popular. Where did it get printed in Masters Edition? Is this online only? Seriously, they printed it in common like this. That's kind of bugs me that they can print it in online only and then just downshift everything in paper. Arcades the Stratege, Joyra the Weatherlight Captain, Yawgmoth Thran Physician, Soul's Attendant. Here's a card I've lost to a lot of times. This card gains so much life. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may gain a life. Common, Soul's Attendant. Let's just play it in. Karlov, the Ghost Council, Lisa, Shroud of Dust, Heliod, the Sun Crown Hunter, and Elias Kor, Sadistic Pilgrim. Checking the replay. Momentary Blink is fun. I think so. I like the Momentary Blink. I do. I felt crummy and fell asleep after dinner. Oh no. Benson says he went live impromptu using the OBS knowledge that you shared with me and stealth teaching myself other things. That's the best way. I'm stumbling forward every single day. The online only downshift is dumb. I think it is too. How can they downshift an entire card from common to uncommon by putting it just not reprinting it in paper? Makes no sense to me. Seems like a faux pas, but nevertheless. Words of the Coast can do whatever they choose. They can. I think it's fine. Well, thanks folks for joining me this morning. I think it's been a slice. I'm gonna have to say it twice and say it nice. skeleton walks into a bar, looks at the bartender and says, "Bartender, I'll have a beer and a mop." Is that funny? I don't know. What has more letters than the alphabet? The post office. That's right. And what do you call a poor Santa Claus? Saint Nicholas. That's right. If you're poor and you're playing Pauper, maybe that's the way to be. There's gold in them hills and those commons and those uncommons that have been shifted down to Pauper. And we like to talk about it here on Wednesdays on the morning show with the movers and the shakers and everybody you know. The bro was in the house giving you some MTG Magic the Gathering stocks and some Magic the Gathering talks with you amazing shining stars. Fans of Magic the Gathering, players, people who are out there in the world, all across the amazing plane and the planet, joining here on the fun this morning. I had a good time ranting and raving and decklist flipping and playing through the movers and the shakers, reading some Magic articles about Dan and some really cool interactions with you folks. Thanks for sharing your tips and tricks in the comments section. I hope you all got something out of today's stream. In fact, I know you did because the cops are at the door. I can hear the sirens. They're on to us. We better get moving here before it's too late. I'd like to thank Titantaman Benson, all the folks, MTG Gaming Bob, thanks for stopping by. Ed, the Dual Brain, Cosmic Seeds. We got Johan Matuzzi coming all the way from Sweden. Robert O'Brien from K-Town. Have yourself a coffee. Time capsule. Appreciate you for joining the fun. Tommy Siddons. Wouldn't be a show without you, my man. Appreciate your comments and your viewership here today as an amazing subscriber. Talk to you all again real soon.